Hey everyone, so we are making the gleanSLO management software. We've started out with a very interesting events that have happened, but now we are on track to make the gleanSLO management software. And our team, called Team Harvest, consists of all three of us. I'm Anna, this is Ethan and Danica. Ethan has headed up the entire kind of project itself, being the project manager. Danica, seeing as she's the only one who has successfully made contact with our client via email, she is the liaison. And I am the product verification, as long as also everybody else is doing software too.
So we're going to talk a little bit about the project. But first, we got an unfortunate email from our client that said that our project was going to be discontinued. This is a bummer. However, this actually led to a bigger project where we could potentially help a lot more people. So it actually became a positive. I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of the before and after. So the original project that our client, Willie, told us to do was to create mobile apps for gleanSLO's existing database that can allow volunteers to easily sign up and schedule harvest. The reason that they wanted this app was because the website that they currently had was kind of antiquated, and they wanted to have good volunteer retention rates. It kind of evolved into our current project now, which is to modernize gleanSLO and other gleaning organizations' current management implementation to increase ease of use and accessibility. And that includes a lot of different things, such as changing the website, having different templates that they could choose from, having different sign-up forms and back-end implementations. And kind of the main purpose of this is because many gleaning organizations use outdated websites and have a cumbersome back-end, and we want to have a compelling solution for them to switch. So that entails having a cheap and easy-to-use solution.
So our team's mission, our goals as a team are to learn more about developing software management sites and kind of understand how the front end connects with the databases and make sure that all the necessary requirements to host a management software there, and as well as some other skills that we need to learn, like time management, teamwork, and then just communication, especially with clients. Things don't always go out the way it's planned, so we just need to learn how to do that with this project.
As she was talking about our client, as you guys have all seen, is Emily Wilson. She goes by Willie. She works for gleanSLO. She's the program coordinator for them. Her and along with two other people were the only ones who had access to the back end. And she just really wants to make it so that gleanSLO is a lot more accessible to both older people and younger people. And so that people can come and pick their harvest and they get all of the excess produce back into the community, which is gleanSLO's whole motto.
These are some of the stakeholders that we have. These are our personas, which are the different users that will be using our software. So on the left, Avi Kirk is a Cal Poly student, and he's a gleaning volunteer. Michael Justice is a farmer, and Edith Smith is a food bank volunteer. And we're going to use these personas to have perspective on how accessible and appealing our solution is.
So on the right, this is a picture of kind of the staff of gleanSLO. This one's Willie. She's the program coordinator at Utah. And then there's Roxanne, who is also the program manager. And then there's also Chuck and some other employees from the food bank. And on the left is just gleanSLO's volunteers. A lot of them are more retirees, which is why we need to make it our software management site kind of more appealing to the younger generations as well, because like most of them are today.
So the goals of our project are really centered around the community that gleanSLO has created. So with this website, our project, even though it is more like computer oriented, we still want to make sure that it is super accessible and appealing to people who don't use computers very often. So a large goal of ours is to make sure that we have a welcoming environment for everybody, whether that's a Cal Poly student, a farmer, or anybody of any age. We also want to make sure that we create a network, I guess, or so, that we can use to help build our website, learning all the requirements behind it and things like that. Our objectives, on the other hand, are more centered towards the employees of gleanSLO. So that has to do a lot with the people who do not know how to code or use websites, building websites. We need to make sure that it's really well documented so that anybody wants to create their own website, another organization wants to create their own website, that they can customize their front end very easily and be able to get enough information from the back end, which is also well documented. And some of our outcomes for the project, obviously, is a management software. This management software has to have a customizable front end, as we said, that has the ability to sign up for harvests, to learn about us, to learn a lot about signing up and other volunteer organizations that they may be connected to. Other step is also to have a back end that manages all of the information that they get, and it's able to deliver statistics that they use to create their annual reports, or they give to grant people that they need money from.
This is our schedule for the fall quarter. And if you can see, it kind of shifted. So before it was creating the mobile app, and then now it's kind of creating the management software. A large part of what we were doing in the fall quarter is research into both the front and the back end, as well as what other organizations are doing for both their implementation and also what kind of data they need to have. In the winter, we hope to add functionality to both the front end and the back end. We're looking to create a couple different templates of the front end that the clients can choose from, and then customize the text and pictures for their own sites. And we also hope to find testers and have a complete product by the end of the quarter. These are project specifications.
So after meeting with Willie and kind of understanding like what needs to be on the site, these are a few things that she'd like to see in the new software management site. So having it being able, or like having it cheap, is very important, because like our target users who are gonna kind of use the site would be for like nonprofit gleaning organizations. So being cheap is a very important requirement to look at. And then some other requirements are like having the front end like minimalistic, easy to navigate, and straightforward sign-up flow. So this is important to like appeal to both like older volunteers as well as like the younger generation, because one of the main points, or the main goals for the volunteer organization is to have volunteer retention and also continue to gain new volunteers to keep their site growing. So some other requirements are for the back end, like necessary information and stats that are recorded for each harvest, and they're necessary for annual reports. And yeah.
These are, oh, that's true.
Sorry, these are engineering requirements. We split it up into administrators and user functions. So a lot of the administrative functions are for like data storage and like legality and just a lot of things like functionality that are needed for the site. There's some more requirements. And then we have the importance like on the side, and if you notice, the cost is like very high importance because again, these are for nonprofit organizations. So, yeah, and then these are the user functions. Most of these are just for like appeal and accessibility. And yeah, again, to recruit new volunteers as well as keep the old volunteers.
So what the current implementation was of gleanSLO beforehand, they had both front end and back end, as we've said. Front end, it was, for the most part, it was a website. They initially had website. They had a webmaster who was doing this all for free, that was hosting it himself. And he was a very old school. He learned it himself and did not like to do a lot of change. So everything was super hard-coded, super difficult to, everything was convoluted. Like to get to the newsletter, you have to click on the newsletter link, and then you'd have to click on newsletter again, and then you'd have to click on the month that you wanted for the newsletter. So everything was super difficult. They recently made it mobile accessible, but it wasn't super mobile accessible. Yeah, so that was the front end. And then the back end, we actually got Snapchats or pictures of it, snapshots of it, which she had said multiple times was super horrendous. As you can see, it is super horrendous. It's just a lot of hard-coded tables, basically, that he had made function so that you could get specific statistics that they would need. A lot of the information is not super useful. They said that it's really hard to figure out where everything is in the back end, that there are only two people that can access the back end. It's Willie and Roxanne. And she said it took Roxanne an incredibly long time to try and figure out how to get all the information that they actually needed. But this is an example of the totals report. So they could go from up here, it has a date range, and then it just prints out the total. So it says food bank pickup, how many pounds they had, how many harvests total they've had. So it's just a lot of information that they need to put in reports and to put in grant reports.
So kind of what I was saying before, to look at what we need to do for our implementation, we looked at and are in the process of contacting other gleaning organizations and other food bank organizations for what they do. This example here is from foodbank.org, but there are many other gleaning organizations that we're trying to get data from. But kind of the big gist of it is that there are a few that do it really well, and then there's a lot of organizations that are antiquated and our project would help with.
So this is the concept fan. These are just like important pages that we need to set up and manage for software. There's also things like security and like statistics, which is more for backend. Yeah, there's like a sign up page, donation page, and about pages that all need data.
And one important part here is inside the sign up page, we're kind of debating if we should have membership or no membership. So if you do have membership, then if you fill out all your contact information, you won't have to do that every time you want to sign up for an event, which is an important part. We're going into prototype generation.
Yeah, so once we stopped with our research, we started looking at different prototypes we could do. We looked at both front-end and back-end prototypes. The front-end prototypes, which is the website builders that we would like to use. We would create a website and then, or create multiple websites as templates and then export that. And once you export it, you give it to the client and they can customize it. That's how the flow would have worked, or would work. Places that we've looked at were Creator, GoDaddy, Weebly. We did a lot of different ones, but we liked 4 of them, which we're going to talk about next. We ranked them 1 through 4. This is 2 and 3. The first one, Weebly, was super nice. As he said before, it had membership, so you could sign in. You could have certain pages that were only accessible to members. So maybe if you only want people to see the harvests who are members who have already volunteered before, that was super useful, except the one downside of Weebly was it was super expensive, which took a toll on its decision matrix because cost was so important. Another one was I Am Creator, which was completely free for nonprofits, which was super cool. It had a lot of plugin functionalities, so you could do a lot of different things like create Google Forms and put that in there. The only problem is it's super difficult to customize, which is also a big drawback.
A couple other ones, GoDaddy was really nice because it has a very vast array of plugins that we could use. And it's also extremely easy to customize, which was part of our requirements, that the client should be able to edit the website easily. However, it was very expensive, again, for nonprofits that kind of crossed it off. We ended up settling, at least for the volunteer sign-up portion, to use time counts, which is completely free. And it has volunteer registration, which means that, as I said before, you sign up once and then you just press a button and you're in the system instead of having to do everything all over again. So with that in mind, we also needed something to facilitate the backend. So we decided that one of the easiest ways to do that for admins to edit and view was to use Google Sheets and Google Forms. And by doing it this way, it actually has very similar functionality to what Willie showed us in gleanSLO's current backend, but it's actually much simpler.
For our final design, we chose to use time counts and view the sheets, just because of its, yeah. So like hopefully moving on to the winter quarter, we will continue creating more things necessary for the backend statistics and everything. Yeah.
Have any questions?
So as far as connecting the back end and front end, do you guys have plans on some sort of automated integration, or are you planning more separate so that it's link over to Google Sheets? Or what's your idea in that area?
I think we're going to keep it separate. One of the main reasons for that is that if we wanted to connect things together, given that we're using a website builder instead of using the standard WordPress and you have a PHP and all that, the problem with doing it that way is because you need to have hosting, you need to pay for all these different services, which can become very expensive and also difficult to maintain and also difficult for the client to use. So we want to keep everything as simple as possible, and that kind of entails that we have to keep it separate.
But they are linked together. It's not like Willie has to go into the back end. Someone can fill out a Google form in the front end, and then it sort of automatically updates the Google Sheets.
So you're trying to service a bunch of different Glean clients, is that correct? Not just gleanSLO. So if someone wants to use your product, will they get their own instance, or how does that work?
Yeah, so like I was saying before with the front ends, what you could do is you could create, well, at least what we're going to do is we're going to create multiple templates. So it'd be like creating 5 separate websites that you can, all of the options, you could export the website, and then you would hand that over basically to the client, and they can go from there. Does that make sense? Did I answer your question?
Yeah, does that require you guys to do that manually every time that you have a client? Yeah. So do you plan on supporting this after you graduate?
It might be possible to export it to a file, which we could put to GitHub or something that they could just download with all the documentation.
Do you have any plans, like once you create the product, to have some sort of like sales pitch or something to these groups, like to contact them somehow, or are you planning to kind of put it out there so it's available to these?
Yeah, so part of the schedule for winter quarter was to, after that we have all the documentation and after testing, we would actually find different clients and see if they're willing to switch, because the main purpose of this is to create a compelling argument for them to switch. And if that means that the current implementation is outdated and they have to pay for it, whereas ours is completely free and it's modern, then yeah, we'll be looking at different people.
Yeah, so we're gonna have to be pitching. So basically, Willie isn't really our client. She's helping us, but we're gonna have to pitch it again to her if she wants to take it up, because she's not, this is not like a she has to use this afterwards. It's a if we make it good enough, she could drop what she's doing and use this.
Like that's what Lucia did, but this old site that you're not really get control of. Did you take a look at the security of it?
No.
Not security. At least that's a Google.
So it's not like you said just one guy goes to himself.
It's written in PHP, right? So
Everything's hard coded.
right there.
Like there's a ticker for how many pounds they have, and that's, it doesn't have any math behind it. They just hard coded that. You just typed it in. Like it's not a good website.
So what type of things would need to be modified for a different volunteer organization to be able to use this for their purposes?
There would have to be a lot of modifications, simply because saying a different organization doesn't really say what that organization does. For gleaning organizations, we could say all our forms could have all the different options for different produce and things like that. Whereas having a nonprofit organization is pretty big. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure.
But like for a different organization, maybe they don't have a harvest page. They have like an events page that you could sign up for. It's just small details that would need to change, but making it a lot of small details.
So for customers like gleanSLO that have a really complicated database with data in it that they probably care about, do you have any way of simplifying and moving that data from their current database to your Google Sheets?
I'm not entirely sure if it's possible to do that with gleanSLO, given
We don't have
part of
access.
the reasons for why the project was discontinued. But for other organizations, it is possible to have if they're using PHP, have it output a JSON file, and then you could just transfer that over through CSV to Google Sheets.
All right, thank you guys.
And the demo.
Sorry.